Hi, everybody, and welcome to this fantastic evening. We're talking about dating profiles tonight. Before we get started, I want to thank all of you who donated tonight. The money that we collect from this class and from all of the classes we've had lately, they're going to an orphan bride to help her get married, which is actually a very important part of Jewish dating. It's a special segula, an omen to support a bride in need. And then, of course, God supports your journey. So if you ever hear of someone in need, especially someone who's getting married and they're in need, support them, because that's part of your journey. Tonight, we have also a lot of singles here. And I figured you never know. You never know when you have singles together. The magic is in the air. So what I want you to do, and as we've done before, is go to your name and your profile and put an A in front of your name if you're available, or an NA in front of your name if you're not available. So A means available, NA means not available. And if you want, if you are available, you can put your age and your religious orientation. And you never know what can happen here. Somebody may see it. The magic is always in the air, and you never know where that special somebody is going to come from. And so obviously, be courteous, be nice, be respectful. If someone does have NA in front of their profile, please honor that as well. I am honored tonight to be joined by Shana Tibi, who is a social worker and a certified professional matchmaker. She has been working with singles who she calls have been experiencing the dating app fatigue, which is something I definitely want to get into tonight. And singles who want to meet the right match. She works with professionals who don't want to waste their time and energy in the online swiping culture. Whether they've never been married, whether you've been divorced, whether you've been widowed, Shana helps people connect for long-term relationships, for marriage, based on shared values, goals, personal preferences, and lifestyles. And she lives with her husband, Rotem. They live in Sarasota, Florida, which is definitely a lot warmer than Montreal right now. But thank God, Sarasota is sending some of that nice warm air up towards Montreal tomorrow. And they have 3 children, and God be willing, they spend their summers in northern Israel. And we're really thankful to Alessandra, who's here tonight as well, who put us together. And one of the things that, as many of you know, whenever I have a guest, we don't plan it. So we actually, Shana and I, did not speak at all about this conversation we're about to have. And so I have no idea what I'm going to ask, and Shana has no idea what she's going to answer, and I think that's amazing. But the topic of tonight's conversation is dating profiles. And if you have questions, put them in the comments, use the chat feature to ask your questions, and then obviously in about 45 minutes, we're going to have an open Q&A that is going to be for you to be able to ask your questions and unmute yourself or just ask them anonymously. So with that, let's get started. Hi, Shana, how are you?
Hi, thank you so much, Rabbi Bernath. It is my great honor to be here tonight with you, and I deeply appreciate the invitation. And yes, again, thank you so much to Alessandra for thinking of us both and introducing us. I love a great introduction, so thank you so much. Very honored to be here.
So when I asked you what we should speak about tonight, you said dating profiles. Why was that the topic that came to your mind?
Well, dating profiles is something that most people, if you're looking and you're online, or if you have a shadchan or a professional matchmaker, your dating profile is something that you want to put some thought and effort into because it really represents you and who you are out in the world.
I'm going to ask the obvious question, a question I get from so many singles. Mm-hmm. Why do we need a profile? Like, come on, I mean, they'll call me up and say, Rabbi, you know me, you know who I am. Why do I have to write up this thing? Like, really? And is that the way that I'm going to meet somebody? What do you say to that?
Yes. First of all, even though you probably do know these people very well, you know a lot of people. So it's hard to keep every single person straight in regards to their personal preferences, who they're looking for, et cetera, et cetera, all the details. So it is important to have a profile. And when you give a profile to your rabbi, to the rabbi's wife, to a matchmaker, or online, that's something that says a lot about yourself. So you definitely want to consider what you're going to put in your profile. Yeah, you can't just expect somebody to memorize everything there is to know about you. So put it in one location.
So let's talk about the profile itself. Some people call it a resume, some people call it a profile. What do you think is important for there to be in this profile?
Okay, so everything we're going to talk about today is going to revolve around what I'm about to say, okay? So consider this. When you're putting together your bio, resume, profile, specific is terrific, okay? Specific is terrific. It's a catchy little rhyme, but it really makes a lot of sense. You want to make sure in your profile that you're being pretty specific. Avoid words like you want to meet someone nice, kind. You want to be a little bit more specific, and I'll give you one specific example. So, an example would be instead of saying you want to meet someone nice, you might want to say, I very much love animals. And if you're somebody who donates their money or time to the Humane Society, maybe we're a match. See how that's a little bit more specific than somebody nice? What's nice to me might not be nice to Alessandra or Rabbi or Francine or anybody who I'm looking at right now.
It's really interesting because I always say, like, I don't know what nice is. I don't know what kind is. Everyone's nice, I think, I would hope. Everyone is kind. And you're saying to be more specific. But when I'm listening to you and you're saying be more specific and you're talking about, let's say, the Humane Society, well, what if I don't like animals? So do you want to cast a wider net, or do you want to cast a more specific net when you're looking for someone?
Well, I like to use the analogy of going to the grocery store. Okay, when you're going to go to the grocery store, or nowadays I've been having my groceries delivered, but if you're going to go to a grocery store,
can you have a date delivered?
Yeah, that's our next thing. Yeah, so I like to tell people to definitely do make a list. If you're going to go to a grocery store, you're going to want to make a list. It doesn't mean you need to stick 100% exactly what's on the list and not veer left and not veer right and not change it up a little bit. But making a list identifies your goals of going into the grocery store and what you know you need to get. And walking out of the grocery store, you're not going to have a cart full of Doritos, so to speak. You're going to walk out with pretty much what you intended to walk in to purchase. So obviously that's an analogy. If you are, creating your dating profile about yourself and what you're looking for in another person, you are going to want to be specific, but that's different than being rigid. So, specific is you do have your preferences and what you are looking for. Rigid is like not being able to accept anything within, outside of those metrics.
So let's kind of specify that, because I think that's really important, the difference between specific and rigid. Mm-hmm. So can you give some more examples of things that you've seen that would kind of help us understand that?
Yes, I have plenty of those. I have a fantastic client. We've chatted about her. I'm not going to say her location right now, but she will only meet somebody in a specific city, which honestly, she's a wonderful woman. And I know there's a lot of matches out there for her, but her attachment to her city and not willing to maybe open up, it's making her matchability a little bit restricted. Another thing that comes up time and time again, ladies, take a breath, and men, take a breath, I know you've heard this before, is height. I have a client, she's in South Florida somewhere, and she is dead set on a certain height. And honestly, I tried to match her up with other gentlemen that I thought would be a wonderful match for her, but she wouldn't even meet them because they didn't meet a height requirement. To me, that's rigid.
What do you think is something that's a great example? I mean, I can't imagine why height. I mean, I understand there's a certain attraction, and attraction is important, and I'm not putting that aside, but I can't imagine why someone's height would have that much to do with their future and your future together to the points where that's a great example of rigid. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what is something that maybe somebody would be rigid, so to speak, about that is okay?
Okay. For example, if there's somebody, I'm going to put this in two in one kind of answer. For example, if you're somebody that working out is your daily routine and you know that fitness is like very high on your list because it's your lifestyle and it's something that you work really hard at. And so if you know that somebody who leads a lifestyle similar to yours in terms of like fitness, I would say that that's like a good thing to add. That might be a little rigid, but then again, it's going to match the lifestyle that you've created for yourself. Um, I think another example would be, I mean, here we're in a room. I would say this is a Jewish room. If somebody has a certain level of observance and that's their lifestyle and that's what they want to do, I would say that's a great thing to put in as being rigid.
Let's focus on that because that seems to be something coming up very often
Okay.
in the Jewish community. Um, Religious orientation.
Okay.
Let's say, I mean, obviously, there's a very big difference between Shomer Shabbat and kosher, and let's say anything less than that. What would you say as a professional matchmaker, as someone who's dealing with this? What would you say if, let's say, somebody was, I don't know, traditional,
Mhm.
or maybe not Shomer Shabbos and kosher? Would you say that it would be okay for two people that like where can we be flexible when it comes to religious orientation?
This is a really great question. We could probably spend the whole time even diving
Yeah.
here. I would say, first of all, I would want to know is the person who, when I say less and more, I'm not adding a value to it. I'm just saying, if somebody's like a little bit less religious, but they have room to grow and they might be interested in a more religious lifestyle, I would say that's not a deal breaker, for two people to meet. If somebody's room to grow, willing to grow, I've seen that on a lot of profiles. I'm this in regards to my orthodoxy level, religious level, but I have room to grow. So I think that's coming in with an open mind. Here's where I am now, but I'm willing to do something else. I think that's something negotiable.
Here's a difficult question, and I'm happy to answer this one with you. So I'm kind of because I think it's really and I want to hear what you have to say. Um, what do you think is more important? Family of origin, because you were talking about like if room to grow. Family of origin, direction of growth, or future.
Wow.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So if a lot of people say similarities attract. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people say, oh, I need someone who has a similar kind of family background as me. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people say, well, I need someone who understands, I can't have someone who doesn't understand my jokes. If they don't understand, if they didn't grow up with the same TV shows that I grew up with, it's not going to work because I have so many references that I use and I want someone to be able to share that with me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or, so that's family and place of origin. Or is it important future, where
Mm-hmm.
we're going, where we're headed?
So you're starting to touch on core values, really. And so if somebody has a core value, and let's say uh, faith and religion is very high on their list of core values, you're going to want to meet somebody else where faith and religion is high in their priorities of core values. So even though they might not line up, let's say somebody might rate, out of 1, 2, and 3, the order could be, interchangeable. But I would say I would look at people's top 3 core values, and if they match somewhere, there's some legs there. I could share a little bit of a personal story. I know you and I have chatted about this in the past. So my husband, so he's from Israel. He's the Mizrahi background, Middle Eastern background, and I'm Jewish American from suburbs of Detroit. Okay, Ashkenazi background. But when it comes down to it, our core value of having a Jewish home is so important to the both of us that it was a match. So with that said, there's we have these conversations all the time in regards to customs, this, that. But overall, the desire to have a Jewish home supersedes, we can work anything out.
So that's interesting. So you've chosen your path and your future, and you've almost let go because there's so many differences. Obviously, your families, couldn't be polar opposites when it comes to the Jewish community, right?
Seriously.
So it's interesting. So, and I've always said this, that I think that your path is so much more important than from where you come. Where you're headed is so much more important than where you've been when it comes to finding someone. I want to go to this core value thing. People are listening to this, watching us, and they're saying, what are core values? What does that mean?
Absolutely. So some of the ways that, matchmakers, shadchanim, people that are love professionals, so to speak, are trying to match people, it is based on certain groups of values, certain core values. And those can be religion and faith, education, how your work ethic or how you spend money, your fitness and health. Those are some core values. And without getting too detailed, nowadays people are kind of adding in politics sometimes. It's become more and more a topic in matching.
Do you think someone has to have their core values, this idea of religion, of these 4 or 5 things that you've just spoken of? Do you think they have to have it figured out before they start dating?
I think that they should have a good understanding of who they are and what are their ideals and what are non-starters. When I was dating for marriage, for me, like, not non-Jewish is a non-starter. That's something that you need to know. What are your core values? What are your must-haves, and what are your non-starters, aka deal breakers? So and they can change a little.
So it's interesting. You're saying that your core values have a direct correlation with your deal breakers.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I would definitely, because, for example, somebody who's really into health and wellness, probably a deal breaker would be someone who smokes or excessive drinking or things like that. If your core value is having a religious home, I would imagine a non-starter would be somebody who, doesn't wish to have that same style home, or somebody who is of a different faith. Those could be deal breakers for people. Absolutely.
And would you want us to put our core values into our profiles? Is that somehow, would you want that to be in the profile? Is that important?
Well, I would say elements, yes, and it usually comes out in a narrative form. I guess putting it out there, that's something that not everybody knows what their core values are, because this is like maybe a new term for people. But I would say definitely if you're working with somebody professionally, they will help you identify your core values and non-starters for matching purposes. But yeah, in a profile, I would want to know who you are, You know, where are you? Are you looking? Oh, here's a negotiable for many people. Are you fixed in one location? Are you willing to move for the right relationship? You know, your body can physically move. Is that something that you want to do for the right relationship, or are you fixed in one place? You know, those are some things I would want to read in someone's profile.
I have a couple questions coming in the private messaging here. What about weight?
Ooh,
What do you say about weight?
like how
Yeah.
to mention it in a profile?
How to mention it, what to do about it.
I hear you. I really
Yeah.
hear you. I hear you all. This is something that we talk about all the time. Listen, being a matchmaker is super fun, but it's not only fun. I definitely have challenging conversations with people daily about expectations and their own goals for their life. So I have a couple things to say about that. One, somebody who is on a weight loss journey, for example, it doesn't mean that you need to reach a certain goal before starting your search for your partner. They're not mutually exclusive. There's a lid for every pot, and if you feel good about yourself, then I would say start your journey simultaneously with, feel the best you can about yourself. So that's number one. In a profile, I would say a couple things. One, it's kind of obvious if you're somebody that does CrossFit 7 times a week, you're probably going to attract someone else that does CrossFit 5 to 7 times per week. That's
Or
kind
at least is okay with it.
Sure, sure, absolutely. Oh, six times per week. Sorry.
So no, but it also has to be somebody who's okay with, it doesn't have to, and I think it's important. It doesn't have to be somebody who actually does CrossFit, but someone who's okay with somebody who's into CrossFit.
Absolutely, absolutely. And obviously there was an example, but if fitness is one of your core values and that's your lifestyle, you most likely are going to want to attract somebody. You probably want to attract somebody that puts that same dedication into their, body health wellness. Now, I get this question from particularly women often. It can go men or women, but there's some ways you could describe yourself. You can say, if you could say petite, you could say curvy, you could say, a couple extra pounds. That's okay. Definitely you don't want to put a picture that doesn't reflect who you actually are. And if you're proud of yourself, be proud of yourself. You could say, here are all my attributes. I'm curvy, and if that's something you respond to, great, reach out to me.
I think one of the things that really comes through in what you're saying, to me at least, is just be confident with who you are. That's who you are. You don't have to hide yourself. You don't have to not be proud. Be proud. Be proud. Show it with pride. This is who I am. Sorry.
Right.
This is who I am.
Generous. That's cute. You're generous.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, right. I had to find myself as generous. Exactly. Another question. Yeah. Another question that came in is, what about age?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, this comes up all the time, every single profile. Age in many different ways. Number one, okay, so it's not that much of a secret, but typically, a male who is looking, let's just talk about for one moment people who maybe are looking for marriage for the first time, because the age on a profile kind of differentiates as you age and your life circumstance. Okay, so if you've never been married and you're looking to start a family, for obvious reasons, you might want to attract a woman of a certain age, who's gonna be wanting to have children. Now, there's so many, you don't want to assume anything about a woman and her age in regards to her ability to have a child. So that's a whole different conversation. But, I understand that people want to, if you've never been married and that's a goal of yours in life, you might want to identify, hey, you don't need to maybe say a specific age, but you could say women who want to have a child. you know, so that's one thing.
I think that's a very, I just want to focus on that for 1 minute because I
Sure.
wanted to say, I want to say the thing. I think it's so important to say it.
Yeah.
There are 20-year-old women who can't have kids, and there are 48-year-old women who are having kids, or maybe even 50-year-old women that are having kids. And I think it's so, I mean, I want to kind of add to what you're saying and also ask, what is the, if somebody comes to you and they are 60 years old and they're saying, well, I'll only date someone who's 30 because I want to have a family, what do you say to them? I'm sorry that I'm interrupting this, but we'll go back to the other conversation.
This is exactly perfect. I mean, I would want to know, first of all, listen, many times men, they want to have a family once they feel like they've reached their financial goals in life. That's pretty typical for a man. They want to, and I'm talking about, you know, gender, traditional gender roles that you might see portrayed on TV in everyday situations. Okay. So, with that said, a man typically wants to reach a certain comfort level because he wants to maybe be the provider of the family. So with that might come with some age, that might, the 25-year-old man is at a different position economically typically than the 50-year-old. So I understand that sometimes a man who's a little bit older might be like ready, like now I'm ready, let me meet the woman of my dreams and have a child. When you're talking about 60, it gets complicated. It's case by case.
I mean, let's ask it. Did he miss the boat? Or does he need, or do we say to him, someone who's 45, 48, 50, they could have kids. Technology today, I mean, maybe it's a little more complicated, but it's more in tune with who you are. Like, what would you say to this person?
I mean, I would say number one, what about if she already, let's say she is divorced or widowed and has a child or two or how many she has, and she's willing to have more. Is that something you're considering? It's more likely to find somebody in that age group who would maybe consider being with somebody, 60. That's number one. Number two, when you say have a child, there's so many ways to have a child and to have a family. Are they thinking adoption? Are they thinking fostering? Like, what are they thinking? I don't think anybody has missed the boat on anything ever. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but I think that it might be changed. It might not be exactly how you envisioned it. But if you want a child and you want a family and you're, above 50, let's say, it's still, it's anything is possible. You might just have your definition altered slightly.
People are really enjoying what you're saying. Someone said,
I
love hearing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so let's go back to this age thing, because I think it's something that's so important. And you were talking about this before, so I love to continue that conversation.
Sure. Right, you were mentioning about age. So okay, here's something that does pop up. Let's say somebody was divorced or widowed, and it's their, let's just call it, the second time around, chance for love type of situation, and I would say that's a whole different ball game than two people who have never been married and are looking, early on to have children and a family. I would say with the kind of been there, done that, I'm hearing from so many men and women in their 50s and up that they've been there, done that. They raised their kids, and now it's time for them. It's time for them. They want to meet somebody to enhance their life. They want to meet somebody who complements their lifestyle. They're not looking for somebody to take care of them, and they're not looking to take care of someone else. So it's really about stage of life. So it's really amazing. Rather than age, it's what stage of life are you in? If you've been there, done that with your kids, you raised them, and now it's your time, find that partner that enhances your life and go for it.
Wow. So let's go back to the profile itself.
Sure.
What are your tips? What are your tips? You have a top 10, you have I come to you, I've been dating for a little while. Everyone here pretty much has been dating for a bit, and I say, I don't know, for some reason, I'm not even getting any dates. What do I do to my profile? How do I fix it up? How do I change it so that maybe someone will be interested in me?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're talking about your, oh, 1 second. Sorry, can you still see me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I pushed a button on my computer. Sorry. Oh, here we go. When you're talking about online dating, I'm a little bit curious to know if you're talking about, when you're talking about your profile, are you talking about like a private profile shared by matchmakers and shadchanim, or are you talking about like public dating profiles where people might be, using apps and whatnot?
So let's start with private profile shared by Shadchanim. Some people don't even know what you're talking about. So why don't you start by explaining what that kind of profile is and what your tips are for it?
Okay, perfect. So, yes, when I have a session with somebody, whether they're, um, you know, wanting me to advocate on their behalf, or they might be an answer for, a client, they fill out a profile, and with that profile, it's all the basics that you know about, and also you want to identify to people, who you are, where you are, what you're looking for, your deal breakers, everything we talked about, especially if it's for a shadchan, which is, the traditional matchmaker within the Orthodox Jewish community. And uh, a lot of times their profile is a little bit different than like a professional matchmaking profile. They're going to ask probably about who's your rabbi, give me your family references. It's like if you saw Indian matchmaking on Netflix, but make it Jewish, like that's kind of what it's like. And yeah, it's really about who you are, where you come from, and what are you looking for. So those are the more private profiles.
So give me an example, like a practical example. He's, let's do a man. He is 38 years old, and he is traditional, lives in Sarasota, Florida. How about that?
Okay.
What would you tell this person to put into their profile?
Definitely all of those. I wanted to open up, well, I have something to open that'll help guide me with what I'm talking about here. I made a graphic a while ago, about your public dating profile. So I'm going to adapt it on the spot.
Do you want to share it in the screen?
I can, sure.
Well, I'm going to give you here. Hold on a second. I don't know. Here, you should be able to share it now.
Okay, let me go to share screen. I'll make it a little bigger. Here we go. Can people see this?
Yeah. Oh, this is great. Okay.
Okay. So here are some matchmaker advice. It says for public dating profiles, but it can be for any dating profiles, truly. And then if there's something specific that your matchmaker or shadchan is interested in, they'll ask for it. So here's some of the things that I suggest. Number one, first and foremost, be honest about yourself. Be honest about yourself. Or are you curvy? Just use a current picture, please. No fuzzy, blurry pictures from 10 years ago. Like, use a picture within a year and just be honest about yourself. Number two, I wrote, be specific. If you know that something is a deal breaker or a non-starter, say so. Oh, see, I wrote, use a current picture. Yes.
So what does specific mean? So what do you mean a deal breaker or a non-starter?
Like what we discussed before, must be Jewish, must be in the tri-state area, must be Canadian, things that would be a non-starter. I jog every morning, so somebody who's health conscious. So that's what I mean by be specific. And then number four, I wrote, lead with values rather than physical attributes.
So what would that look like?
Yeah, I like when we talked about the core values a little bit, I would prefer, even before I get to showing pictures, I would much prefer that people can identify what some of their core values are. And that's where I would start with the matching process. Of course, you want to feel some physical attraction to the person you're with, but that could build and that could come, that could be secondary because if you don't have those shared core values, and I want to differentiate. Core values are not hobbies. One person can love tennis and the other one could love, chess. You don't have to have the same hobbies as your partner, but you should have similar top three core values.
Mm-hmm.
And here I wrote, describe your interests, level of physical activity, places you traveled, specific things you like. This is the fun stuff, you know. Hey, I'm
Is it
shooting.
really that important, or is it just to be able to take up space? Like, I'm asking out of curiosity.
I would put a couple interesting things. If you're just putting like fact, 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 it's a little boring. You might want to add a couple things, to make to be interesting, to show a little bit of your personality, a little bit
Even
about.
to the matchmakers. I mean, I understand when you're on a public site where singles are looking through it, but to matchmakers as well, they want to see a little of that personality forward.
I say so, and the more when you said it out loud, I even thought about it, and I said, "Yep, yes, I think so," because I'm also advocating for people. I'm also their PR agent. I'm making sure they have their best picture, their best description, and when I'm talking to another matchmaker, I want to say, you know, hey, I want to tell you about David. Here's all about him. Oh my God, he speaks five languages and he loves to play tennis every Wednesday. Like these are,
Right.
although those are not deal breakers, somebody that doesn't play tennis wouldn't be a deal breaker, but it's definitely a point of interest that can like get someone's attention.
It's like a connection point.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's really great. Someone just asked, going back to number 2, are
Mhm.
there deal breakers that are best not to mention?
Are there deal breakers that are best not to mention? That's a really good question, honestly. I think if it's really, really a deal breaker, I would be curious as to what that might be. I've seen deal breakers from, they shouldn't be, heavy drinkers. That could be a deal breaker based on past experiences with maybe someone, that had some type of issue. Um, but if somebody's going to tell me a deal breaker is they can't have curly hair, I'm going to challenge that deal breaker. I would want to know a little bit more about, now, why is it a deal breaker? Why is that important to you?
Yeah.
So I think depending on the deal breaker, if it seems like a preference and not a deal breaker, I think there's room to have a conversation about that.
A guy told me recently she must have olive colored skin. Do you think that's a deal breaker that needs to be spoken about, or that's a real deal breaker?
I would want to know why. Is it because he thinks that they're more closely connected in their culture? Is it, like why? Like I would want to know why.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah, let's go to number 6 and 7. I'm excited about this.
Awesome. Six, I mentioned at the top of the chat. So basically, I said, specific is terrific. Instead of saying tall, funny, and kind, what does that mean? What's tall, funny, and kind? So be a little more specific, like, hey, I'm 5'6" and prefer someone taller than me. I get along well with people with quick wit and pop culture references. I volunteer at the Humane Society and would love to meet someone who's compassionate towards animals. So just be more specific. Don't just go for tall, funny, and kind. Like, say why.
You know what I like about that? It's I messages. This is who I am. It's not what I'm looking for, it's what I have to give to the relationship. And I think that's a great way to describe what you're looking for, not as what you're looking for, but as what you have to give.
Yeah, yeah. You can't really argue. I mean, not that you would argue, but you can't. It's kind of, it's not a point of contention if you're like, hey, this is who I am, and I invite you if you think that we'd get along because here's who I am. Absolutely. Yeah.
I like that. I think that's a really great practical tip that people can use, because I find so often people write in their profiles, this is what I'm looking for. Well, okay, that's wonderful. I'm happy that you have a checklist, but is that the person you are? And are you a match to that person you're looking for? Like, if I were to look at you and look at your list of things that you're looking for, are the two of you compatible?
That's coaching. That's coaching right there. Absolutely. That's exactly the challenging conversations that I have with people every day. It's about, what are you putting out there? You're expecting this, but like, where are you? Like, what are you bringing? What's
But
your thing that you're bringing?
even more than that, are you a complement to that? Can you be married to that? I'm happy that you want all that, but could you actually be married to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And then this is more just like a tip. This isn't about profiles, but here's like, 2020 was tough on everybody, different levels of tough on different people, but it was a challenge. And it was a challenge to meet people. It was a challenge to forge connections. And me as a matchmaker, I had to do everything on Zoom, everything online, seriously. So what I like to tell people is, if you meet somebody, get on Zoom or a comparable platform, whatever it is you choose, as quickly as possible to assess compatibility. And if someone doesn't want to meet on video, like, that's a red flag. I would note that. I would really question that.
What if they're just, what if they're really an introvert, like so introverted, and they're just scared? So if you're that person, can you just say, I'm really scared to do it? I guess I'll do it, but I'm really scared to do it. Is that okay?
Then maybe take a little bit more time before getting on video. I guess what I would like to advise against is lingering month-long texts and like leading, you start getting emotionally involved even in a text relationship. You start really like picturing things in your head and expecting things to happen. And if you don't hop on Zoom or a video chat sooner than later, there could be a big letdown or disappointment or misrepresentation of who that person is.
What if you are not a techie? What if you're not tech oriented? You get penalized because of that?
Well, there's a lot of platforms out there. I would say most people have a smartphone. Most people can get on FaceTime, Google Hangout. I mean, there's like many, many, many platforms to try to accommodate each person. So I can understand at first, but eventually you're going to want to hop on some kind of video screening chat with somebody.
This is really great. I have so many questions coming in. I'm going to try to get some of them. I'm going to leave for the Q&A, but some of them I think are really pertinent. Um, we spoke about occurrence picture. That was your number 3. This person says, I'm using a picture that's 3 years old. Now I can see in this person's profile, they write that they're 27. So I'm using a picture that's 3 years old, and that's the most current professional picture I have. Is that okay?
Well, does it still look like you? I would just, honestly ask a friend, hey, does this still look like me? Sometimes, 2020 did a number on me. I couldn't use a picture from before 2020, but that's just me. So I would say, ask a friend, do you still look like that picture? 3 years, it's on the edge. I would say within 12 to 18 months is more, you know.
Okay. This person writes, I shared a picture that was glamorized, and when he saw me in person, he said I didn't look like that. That didn't look like me, and he was really mad and mean. up until he saw me. We connected so easily, but he said that I betrayed him. What do you think of that?
Wow, that's a tough one. Definitely, it's okay to use a little touch up. Like I'll be honest, I'll show you right now. Like this, I'm using a slight filter as we speak. You know what I mean? Like I could turn that filter off. Yes, Zoom has slight filters, FYI.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So here, I took it off. I have no filter now. It's not that different, but I mean, there's a little bit of a difference. So, if you're going to use a photo that has been dramatically altered, I would say I would advise against not using pictures that are dramatically altered. However, let's talk about this for a minute. Just like be a mensch, that guy, it sounded like that person was rude and it was kind of uncalled for and I sounds like it hurt your feelings, and that's just not kind, that's just not kind. So I would say use the most current picture you have, less glamorized. That's a great word, by the way, less glamorized. And, there is somebody for everybody. So, yes, you want to put your best foot forward, but you don't want to use, such an extreme picture that somebody would not think it was you. But also, if you're on the other end of that and you meet somebody and well, first of all, get on Zoom. This is what I'm talking about. So like you could, eliminate that issue. Like get on a video chat really quick. But if for whatever reason you didn't and you go right to meeting in person, um, and you met somebody and they don't look what you thought they would look like, just be a mensch. You don't have to see them again, but be nice in person.
This person here is writing about health issues. Do you share that in your profile?
I would say that is, a personal choice, and I would say, consider to yourself why you might be sharing it and what's the importance of sharing it. If it's something that it is going to be extremely important to the relationship. A first date is really that. It's really to get to know somebody to see if you want to get to know them further. So unless it's like very extreme, I would say you don't have to put it in a profile, but I would say be ready to have that conversation with somebody if you continue to date them.
Yeah.
What do you think, Rabbi? This is a good one.
I can't stress enough that a first date is for a second date and not for marriage. Everyone's always jumping. Like people tell me, I knew in 5 minutes. Really? Did you know your career in 5 minutes? Do you make big life choices in 5 minutes? Why don't I just give you a wheel and you can just spin the wheel and decide what your real life choices are? Like, I think that it's so important that you're like, and I think you say it so well here. If you meet someone, just assess compatibility. That's what it's about. Do I want to be near this person? Am I interested? Most importantly, am I interested? Do I want to know more?
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
It's not about, do I want to marry the person? It's not about, do I want to get engaged? It's about, am I interested? And then day two is, so I'm interested in day three. I mean, at some point you have to think about the future, but definitely the beginning of the relationship should not be so forward thinking, so future focused.
Absolutely. Do you want me to keep this up or stop this screen?
Yeah, you can stop the screen share. Someone here writes, if they put that they don't want kids, and you do, since you're divorced, is this a deal breaker? Someone that wants kids, I guess, or someone who has kids or wants to have kids.
I would say if you're open or unsure, I would say there's room to grow there. Again, if you're open or unsure. If for some reason and that's what and it's really in your heart that you don't want to have children for whatever your reasons are, I would say that if somebody wants children and somebody doesn't, I would say that is a deal breaker.
Okay. Yeah. I can tell you that I marry a lot of couples, and I do a premarital program with the couples that I marry. And one of the way that I do the premarital program is the first part of it is a questionnaire they fill out, and I do an assessment of the strengths and weaknesses of their relationship. Now, what's amazing is, so there's simple questions and more advanced questions. And one of the questions is, how many kids do you want? Now, you'd expect a couple that's getting married, they probably had that conversation at some point. And I've had a couple of times now where I asked the question and the two questionnaires came back, and one said 0 and the other one said 1 or 2, and one said 0 and the other one said 3. And it's just shocking to me how many people have not had that serious conversation in their dating. And they'll tell me the same thing. The reason why we never had it is because we didn't want to mess up a good thing.
Right. Yeah.
So I would agree with you on that. There's so many questions coming in, but I want to go to an interesting little exercise that we did in the beginning of tonight's talk. And that is, we asked our group here, nice. In your opinion, what is the most important thing that you should add to a dating profile? Shana, what do you, as you look at this, what do you analyze here?
Right. I mean, again, I know the bigger the word, the more times somebody said it. So I'm thrilled to see goals, like shared vision and goals is amazing. Definitely an important thing to add. There are a lot of visual people with pictures. What are you looking for? Exactly. What are you looking for, and what do you bring to the table? I think, like I mentioned, this is a really great list. I'm trying to see if something stands out as like, whoa, like whoa in a bad or good way. Yeah, I think they're all really excellent. Intentions, I like that. Relocation, current job, they're all really great. Ooh, education, that's important. That's something that is very important to a lot of people. Your education. Some people use that as a metric for matching.
Why do you think that's so important? Maybe somebody doesn't have an education, but they've done well, or they're okay without an education. Not everybody has the ability or comes from a place of means to have an education.
I agree. Some people say that they do ask me, oh, what's their highest level of education? Some people, for them, it's really important. Again, if they have a high level of education, sometimes it's important that their prospective spouse has a high level of education. While some people like to tell me, hey, listen, I have a master's degree or doctorate. It's okay if they don't, as long as they can hold a conversation, have intelligent and independent thoughts, are able to have a good communication skills. So there's the formal education, and then there's things that make up intelligence. So I think it's individual, person by person.
Okay. What about, I see something here about financial status. What do you say to that? Because that's something that seems to come up more and more.
So for financial status, okay, let's talk about that. So when it comes to traditional gender role relationships, typically the male wants and desires to be the provider, and typically the woman wants to be the CEO of the home, so to speak. And they obviously have partnership to make that a well-oiled machine. Although things can be different. It really depends on what you are interested in. Is that the kind of relationship you desire? Mm-hmm. Or do you desire a 50-50 split on everything? It really depends. But I would have to say, what I've been noticing more and more for people that have been there, done that, people who might have raised their children, now they're entering like a second relationship, I would have to say they want somebody who brings equal to the table in terms of financial.
So it also, the stage of life matters when Absolutely. It comes to these things. A question coming in, what about a sense of humor?
Yeah, important to me, but there you go. Important to Brian. Yeah, I mean, again, it's being specific. What is it? What makes you laugh? What makes you laugh?
What if the guy doesn't make you laugh? You really won't marry him because he doesn't make you laugh? It's that important?
That's a stumper. I would say, for some people, it is really important. I think I would couple that with communication skills. Listen, is somebody going to have every single thing checked off your list? Like, no, like never. So what are you willing to kind of let go off your list? If this is a guy that's ticking a lot of your boxes, but okay, he's not so funny. I don't know. Is that something you're willing to let go? And I would say most times people would. And then, go with your girlfriends to a comedy show, supplement.
But I think that's a really important thing. I mean, sometimes we want our spouse to be everything for us, but you do have friends, you do have other people in your life. That spouse doesn't have to have everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're marrying somebody of a different, culture, even though if you're both Jewish, like in my case, we don't even watch the same shows, like we're our
Oh my
sense.
gosh, you don't watch the same shows and you can be married?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. So our senses of humor, they are different. We are from different cultures, but our core values and, family, what we wanted for our family and our future is in line, and that's what made the match.
It just sounds like for you, and not only to use your personal narrative, but I see this in so many couples, is that it came down to how you wanted to raise your kids and what kind of family you wanted to have. And some of those other things that seem to be so important to singles when they're making their profiles didn't really come out as important to you when
Mhm.
you actually found the right person. So, and I say this so often, if the singles only knew what was important in a long-term relationship, they would have a whole different set of things. So what is it? What would you say to singles, um, based on your experience, based on your professional and personal experience? What do you say to them that they could do in order to be more realistic? Because at the end of the day, so many things that we focus on are not that important.
Mm. Mhm. To be more realistic, I would definitely say, first of all, abandon the idea that somebody's going to complete you. Like, that's not a thing. You know what I mean? Come with your own set of skills and interests and your own, personhood, so to speak, and find somebody who appreciates those about you and can complement that in a way like it can be more like puzzle pieces, not like identical, things. I couldn't think of the right word, more of a puzzle piece, not a mirror. So if that paints a picture, because at the end of the day, you're going to want somebody who you can trust 100%, that you can communicate with, and that you can feel comfortable to have your own emotions and thoughts, and they're going to respect, your emotions, your thoughts, and you can have a true conversation.
Before we're about to end the formal part of our evening, do you have any tips, any best best practices, any best tips for creating a dating profile that you want to share before we finish tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. I know I've said it a few times, but the rhyme really works. So, specific is terrific. Consider to yourself your must-haves, and consider to yourselves your do not wants. Your deal breakers. Make a list. Consider what you bring to the table and what you're looking to attract in the other person, and write it out. I mean, different dating profiles specifically might have different fields, for different narratives and whatnot. But yeah, just really, if you're coming from a place of being proud of yourself and knowing who you are and knowing what you bring to the table, I think making your profile is going to be a piece of cake. Just make it specific about you, yet be flexible enough to, you know, um, widen the net a little bit if you need to.
Okay. And what's your number one secret for finding that special someone?
Oh my goodness. You mean like practically like where to look
or in general, like if you had to say, like, what's your the
okay.
one thing?
Find people who, pick know what your number one core value is, your number 1, 2, and 3 core values, and be in the places that you think your likely match would be. So, for example, if you're somebody that feels very strongly about their religion, then I would definitely say, find that shul and go to that place and try to find that person. If you're somebody that health and wellness is super important and you are avid in your eating and health and wellness, definitely look to Facebook groups, look to meetups are not happening so much right now, but look to the places where you think your match is going to be. If you don't think your match is going to be at a bar, don't hang out at a bar.
And I think that's great. Get out there, look, period. People think that this is going to be like an Uber dating, right? Someone's going to show up at my door, ring the doorbell, say, hello, I'm here and I'm your date.
Oh, and tell your friends. Just like if you were looking for a job, you would tell your network, hey, anybody, I was just laid off, as a copywriter. Anybody know any copywriting work? Do the same thing. If you know who you're looking for, tell your friends, tell your family, tell people, hey, I'm open. I'm ready to, receive the blessing of marriage, and I'm open, and here's what I'm looking for. And who do you know? Do you know a guy who knows a guy? Have them open up.
That's a very good idea. Like, even I'm sure you have friends who have dated guys that were great, who didn't work out for them, but maybe would be good for you. That's a great idea.
Sorry, that's why it's always important to be a mensch on a date, because if you're not the right man for this woman, she can still like refer you to a friend.
That's amazing. Because we're gonna go to an open Q&A, which is going to be totally off the cuff, off the record. So we're going to end the recording of tonight's lecture. So how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. People can get a hold of me in so many ways. They can get a hold of me with my website. I'll definitely share it all with you, which is Shana, Shana, ShanaConnects.com. That's my website. And on my website, you can schedule a one-on-one Zoom consultation with me. You can join my private database. You can also sign up for tips like the things I was talking about tonight. So those are 3 ways to get in touch with me. And yeah, I'm very active on all social media platforms. Shana Tibi, Curated Connections, all social media.
And I know that you moderate the very popular Jewish Love Lab on Clubhouse.
Yes, thank you for mentioning it. Yeah, I founded if you're not familiar with Clubhouse, I do have a few invites, so you can send me a message. I'm happy to send you one of my invites. It is an amazing audio drop-in platform. That's how I met Alessandra, which now is how I met Rabbi Bernath. So it's pretty amazing. And yeah, I started a club called Jewish Love Lab. It's really a way for people to connect across borders, all Jews, everybody.
Amazing. Okay, so Shana, thank you so much for the conversation and for being so open and vulnerable in this space. I mean, we didn't prepare any of this tonight, so I really appreciate you just kind of going with the flow with me and answering what I thought were some really tough questions. So thank you for that.
Very happy to. Thank you for inviting me and for having me. Thank you.